Hi, I am Chitra.
I am Madhvi.
I'm Jyothi.
I'm Suchitra.
Together, we are your hosts
On the Aedge podcast.
We bring you stories and experiences.
From our experiments around learning, marketing, and design.
These are stories of people, technology,
And people interacting through technology.
Of what we see, create,
and recommend.
Rolf Dobelli, in his book, The Art of Thinking Clearly, talks about sayings that go live each day as if it were your last, or enjoy each day to the fullest and don't worry about tomorrow. These can't be taken literally. It might make you broke, sick, or perhaps even land you in a bad situation in life. And yet, its meaning is inherently noble. It expresses a deep longing and a desire for immediacy because we place a huge value on immediacy that is more than justifiable. So let's see how our impulse to do something now causes us to make inconsistent decisions.
Hello and welcome to the Edge podcast. This podcast is all about UX, UI, marketing, and storytelling. In this episode, we will be discussing a bias which we all can relate to. I'm Suchitra and my co-host is Jyothi. Hi Jyothi.
Hi Suchitra, glad to be back for another episode.
Yeah, let's get started.
Yeah, so I read a news article which said how India leads the world in its intent to use these buy now, pay later services in the future. Since the pandemic, we've seen a huge surge in online shopping, and all these tech savvy customers, especially millennials and Gen Z, are increasingly shifting to this concept of micro lending and purchase now, pay later models, right? Apparently, it has become a way of life, and this is set to reach $40 billion by 2025. And guess what? This whole mindset of buy now, pay later is also a psychological bias. And we'll see how this is exploited by products and companies.
So, we will be discussing a bias called hyperbolic discounting. So, what is hyperbolic discounting? Term sounds very scary, right? It's basically a cognitive bias where people choose smaller and immediate rewards rather than the larger and the later rewards. This generally occurs more when the delay is closer to the present than the future. So, shall we play a quick game, Jyoti, to understand this much better?
Sure.
Okay. I'm going to give you two deals of coupons. Okay. So, the coupon one is you can avail a spa at a discounted rate.
Okay.
That would cost 1,500. But if you avail it by this weekend, it would cost you 1,000. And the second coupon that I'm going to give you is after 6 months, it's our anniversary. Okay, the spa's anniversary basically. And you avail the same service for just 500. Okay. What would you choose?
Okay, now that I know better, I will choose the second option. I don't want to fall into the trap of impulse buying. I will wait for 6 months and I will take the lesser option.
Yeah. Okay. So that's your choice basically, right? So what happens generally? People, what do they generally think? So the moment, okay, 500 is less. So you think, okay, this is something you get immediately and you just rush and use the offer and you get the spa at 1,000 rupees, right? So that's what this hyperbolic discounting is all about. But I think we'll get to understand this bias much better. What do you say, Jyothi?
Sure, Suchitra. I think this is an interesting psychological bias. We see it often, but we don't really think about why it happens. So I was reading on why exactly this is called hyperbolic.
It's mostly because the rate of discounting future rewards can be mathematically represented, and it resembles the formula for a hyperbola, and hence the term hyperbolic is used. For example, when people are given a choice of receiving, say, 50,000 rupees in 1 year or 55,000 rupees in 13 months, the majority opted for 55,000. And there's a 10% increase in one extra month, so why not? In a second case, when people were asked if they preferred 50,000 rupees today or 55,000 rupees in a month, most took the 50,000 rupees right away. In both cases, they just had to wait 1 month. But what's different? The second scenario introduced the power of now, and that caused this inconsistent decision making. So, if you have to put it in another way, as rewards move further into the future, we become more patient and logical in the face of the same choices. We are more willing to defer gratification in the future than in the present.
Yeah, that's immediate,
Yeah.
right?
Even if you have the same set of choices, you're willing to wait more in the future than in the present.
True. I totally agree with that, Jyoti, because see, in the current trend, right, we are getting into a mindset that buy now, pay later apps, right? That's the
Hmm.
current mindset we have. So let's just do it. Let's just enjoy this moment and get whatever we need. And then we will see the rest is the kind of mindset we are inching towards. And I think we have a lot more points about like how it is being used in the market for the instant sell of the products or how it is used in the UX industry. We do have a couple of points to discuss. Yeah. So basically, all of us would have used credit cards at some point. So generally, these cards lure customers for their rewards and loyalty points like fuel discounts, launch access, and you should not forget the free merchandise and coupons they give also, right? So
Hmm.
smaller and short-term rewards play into customer psychological biases and give them the instant gratification that they are looking for. So it is more about the buy now and pay later mindset. So when we have the benefits of buying and getting things immediately and reap the rewards and pay later, so this pushes the customer to buy more. Yeah. So
Yeah.
this basically puts a customer in a spot where you spend to avail all this. So the more you spend, the more you get reward is the mindset that you are pushed into. And this is the kind of instant gratification that the customer also looks for. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So are you familiar with any other example similar to this, Jyoti, like the instant gratification that we are discussing right?
Yeah, I think the whole concept of instant gratification, right, where we have the strong urge to fulfill any desire at that moment, and this impulse buying and all this is also, say, connected to procrastination. The reason why we procrastinate is because we want to do things that are enjoyable at that moment. There is the whole reason why we don't get our work done at the right time is because we want to probably quickly catch up an episode of Netflix or scroll through our social media websites, and yeah, that is more rewarding for us at that moment, and we do not think about the more serious jobs that have to be done, right? The reason for procrastination is also hyperbolic discounting, because we don't give enough importance to the reward that we are getting later by doing our serious work. We are giving importance to gratification rewards that we get in that instant of, the joy of watching something on TV or the joy of spending time on social media. So I could say procrastination is one such example.
Yeah, I think I can relate to it pretty much, Jyoti. And I think we have spoken about this or something very similar to this in our previous episode, FOMO, fear of missing out, also, right? You have a fear that if you miss this offer, you might never get this at the given price. Yeah. So basically, we were also talking about these e-commerce giants, right? They run their annual sales like Great Indian Sales, Big Billion Days, kind of
Hmm.
to create so much urgency in the customer's mind that this
Mhm.
is a limited period offer. So
Yeah.
creating this limited period offer and creating that urgency in the mind of customer, it makes them think that if I don't buy now, this price will never be this low again. I'll have missed a great opportunity. And they tend to put up so many campaigns and advertisements like this is a limited period offer and you will not get this product again for this particular rate, flash sale, and buy two get one free only in this limited period and all. So all these kind of rushing the customers to buy more and spend more push them into a situation where you have to buy immediately, else you are not going to get this at all. Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
another good example that drives or pushes the customer to buy more than what they have budgeted is free shipping deals. So have you ever experienced that, Jyoti? I think that's a perfect example for this hyperbolic discounting. Like you buy more than 1,000, you get free shipping. And that's the first thing that comes into any customer's mind, right? You've already added something in your cart for 500 rupees, and then you just have to buy another 200, then you will be eligible for free shipping. So we are not
Yeah.
even bothered what the amount more we are going to spend, but we are focused on the free shipping. So what is your thought on that, Jyothi? I think I have experienced so much like this. So what is your take on it?
Like I said, right? I think in the starting of the episode, we spoke about how buy now, pay later apps are set to make around $40 billion by 2025. That itself would show the amount of spending power that our current generation are showing, right? And I think this mindset of ours is totally being exploited by all the products and companies. That is, we justify a larger purchase with free shipping over being patient and waiting for a larger reward, a larger reward like having more money in your bank account. We don't think
Yeah.
about that.
We generally don't think about holding it on our account, right? I think that's the weakness of the customers. Not everybody though, but most of us just given to such temptations and we end up buying more than what we were actually planning to spend, right?
Yeah, all these current shopping trends probably work on this cognitive bias that almost everybody uses.
True, that's absolutely right. So I think predominantly whatever that urges us to buy immediately and satisfy our instant gratification, all these sums up for what hyperbolic discounting is, right? Why do people generally go for this hyperbolic discounting? Or why do people get affected because of this hyperbolic discounting? What is your thought on it, Jyoti?
Few of the reasons are, people are risk averse. People prefer something that is sure now, and rather than waiting for something in the future because it might be perceived as a risk being attached to that long term reward because it's uncertain compared to the immediate reward that they are receiving now. That's why when we are making decisions, we tend to favor options that are more certain or that is more closer to the present. Maybe people are also aware that their preferences might change, like a lot can happen over the given time that has made you to wait for the reward. So many things can change, so people are keen to satisfy their current wants because they might not care for the reward in the future, like in all these examples of saying give 50,000 rupees or 55,000 rupees after a certain time. They might not care for that money then. They might want it now, or they have this urgent need in some situations. Perhaps people need the reward right now, and they don't even have the luxury of waiting that much to receive that, right? I think this is said that it is true in people who belong to lower income households. They want it now and they don't want to be waiting for the near future to receive that. And that's also said that people are less likely to save or invest in people who belong to lower income households. Waiting can become difficult. So that's why there is this urgency in
Yeah,
decision
you never
making.
know. It's kind of uncertain, like what will happen then, whether you'll be able to buy or not, whether financially will you be in a position to afford it later. All this pushes the person into the urgency, and then we can say that the certain situations push you into poor decision making, and it also kind of satisfies your desires. It makes the long term benefits of decisions less clear and less valuable. Therefore, just pushing you to select whatever is immediately available and then you just go for it. Yeah.
And our brains are apparently never even wired to be truly rational because there is so much information, in the world for us to process. So, because of also that kind of historical reasons where maybe, cavemen did not have to contend with so many complex choices we do today. And that has also kind of passed on, and we have evolved as a species to choose the immediate option.
Yeah. And there will also be certain ways to avoid it. I'm sure we can't just like that avoid because these are impulsive decisions and it gets sometimes very, very difficult for us to even realize that we are getting into this mode or we are even getting into this bias, right? But there would be some ways to avoid it, like not totally refrain from buying, but at least there will be some elements or some thoughts how to avoid. So, have you come across anything? Because when I asked you those questions, right, about the deals, You were very clear in choosing the reward, even if it was going to be a month later or 6 months later. You were very clear that, yeah, I'm not going to waste my extra $500 now at a spa. Instead, I'll wait for this coupon for 6 months and then I'll utilize it. So I'm sure you would have had some exercise or mental training or some calculations going on there to not make that impulsive decision. No, I'm going right now. So, can you just share your inputs on that, Jyothi? Like how to avoid these bias in hyperbolic discounting?
Yeah, so I read something, there's a term called priming or, future focus priming. That is, you are exposed to some stimulus, like you're exposed to a word, for example, that influences our response to another stimulus. That is, in simpler terms, if I have to say something like if I'm exposed to words like future, long term, self control, if I'm often thinking about these terms, I am also going to be thinking in a certain way that will stop me from making these impulse buys. And, because I'm thinking about the future, I'm thinking about whether this is going to help me in long term. I'm thinking about, my self control. So this is what is called as priming. You are constantly making decisions that are prioritized by you. You're not just falling into a trap of urgency and immediacy. So that could be one way. Or another thing is, yeah, empathize with your future self. And that is, you assume that your future self has a lot of energy, you're self disciplined and motivated. So you want to be in a very good shape in your life. And you do not want to ruin everything for this small joys that you are getting momentarily.
Visualize what you need in future and then plan accordingly.
Yeah, yeah.
So this reminds me of something also, Jyoti. So I think in the recent banking apps, they also do have this small time goals can be achieved by adding some small time funds kind of. So I think that is also like goals and vision, small time goals. If even if you might have this big goals, you can break it down into small and do it in a manageable chunk, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, and the pleasure of getting that immediate reward or instant gratification, you can also satisfy your desire. At the same time, you can ensure that nothing goes wrong in the future also. Plan, take a step back and then think, okay, what is this and what it is really going to give you, kind of, right? And
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. In fact, I even came across the opposite of buy now, pay later apps. There are new apps that are coming up, which is talking about save now and buy later, or save now and pay later.
wow, I think that's truly amazing.
So, if anybody is not familiar with it, there is something called the Marshmallow experiment, which was conducted sometime in the 60s by a Stanford professor named Walter Mischel. I think most of you would have heard of it, but if you haven't, so this experiment was to show, the power of delayed gratification. So, in this experiment, the professor, he conducted it over, say, hundreds of children, mostly around the age of 4 and 5 years old. He offered each child a marshmallow, and he said if the child does not eat it while he was away, they will be rewarded with a second marshmallow. But if the child decided to eat the first one before the researcher came back, then they would not get a second marshmallow. So the choice was simple. That is, you get one marshmallow right now. If you eat it, you don't get any more. If you wait, you'll get two more later. So this is the choice. And the researcher would leave the room, and then they have observed how each kid has, reacted to this scenario. And they found that some kids just jumped and ate the marshmallow immediately. Some other kids have tried to bounce around and wait and tried to restrain themselves for a while, but eventually they've given into the temptation. And finally, a few other kids actually managed to wait the entire time and not eat it. So that small set of kids have received a second grade. Yeah. So the experiment kind of became famous because the professor, actually followed through the lives of these children and also showed that the ones, the kids who were willing to wait for the second marshmallow had done better in their lives, like, having better school scores, better social skills, and generally, succeeded in their life, is what this experiment tried to show, the power of delayed gratification.
Basically, not giving up easily and don't give give in for the temptations. Yeah.
Yeah, like patience really is a virtue.
So that sounds really interesting, and that is definitely an experiment to try it out at your homes also with kids and the elders around. I guess we'll get to know whether they have the patience to wait and get one more reward, or they just want to gobble up the marshmallow immediately. So I think you can take up this test as well at home.
Yeah, but I mean, there were few criticisms too. I read that because, it's not always the child's ability to delay gratification and self-control is not always a predetermined trait, is what some of them argue. But yeah, anyway, that's probably a different discussion. We are not going to
Yeah.
get there.
As we always
Yeah.
tell in all our episodes, every coin has two sides. So this is one side to it. So the mental models that we have been talking about in these episodes of our Rarely Rational series aim to train your brain to think in new ways. I hope the cognitive biases that we have covered so far are keeping you engaged. Stay tuned for the next episode where we explore a new mental model to overcome our biases.
Please subscribe to the Edge podcast on your favorite podcast channel. We are on Google, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and more. If you liked this episode, please share it with your friends. If you have stories to share and want to be featured on our podcast, write to us at podcasts@adepticlabs.com.